Howdy folks, and welcome back to Bridgetown Abridged. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very important governmental position, auditors. So let's jump right into it. What exactly is an auditor? If I put a gun to your head and asked you, what is an auditor? You might say something along the lines of, what about this question makes you feel like violence is necessary? But a more on-topic answer would be, they audit stuff? And you actually wouldn't be that far off. To audit something means to examine it for the purposes of verification. So, in a nutshell, an auditor is someone whose job is to examine the rest of the government and to verify that they're performing their jobs and hold them accountable. They're the ones who watch the other watchmen. This means that they have an incredibly important job when you stop to think about it. For instance, in the past, when you've seen a ballot measure to raise taxes to pay for something, did you ever think to yourself, how do I actually know that any of that money is going to the things the measure said it would go towards? And that's the job of the auditor. Speaking of which, in practical terms, what exactly does an auditor do? Their main job is to conduct performance and financial audits of city programs and operations. As part of doing these audits, they often make recommendations to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and equity of city bureaus, offices, and functions. They also hold other city agencies and programs accountable to relevant laws. For instance, if a city agency is obligated to dedicate a certain percentage of their budget to community outreach, or if the office assistant is supposed to stop only bringing whole wheat gluten-free donuts. Looking at you, Dave! So now you know who an auditor is, and you know what an auditor does. At face value, there's not really much to describe, but you might be left with a nagging question. How do I know that I can trust their audits? If their job is to hold everyone else responsible, who's holding them responsible? There are 3 ways that should enable you to trust your auditor's work. First off, it's common for city auditors to perform audits according to the Generally Accepted Government Auditing Standards, or the GAGAS guidelines. No relation. These guidelines are set by the United States Government Accountability Office, which is part of the federal government, and they're generally accepted as the best standards for auditing, as their name would imply. Secondly, city auditors should publish the results of their audits in reports that the public is allowed to read. That way you can sit back on a Saturday night with a glass of wine and find out which city agencies aren't pulling their weight switching to use all recycled paper. The ball's in your court now, Department of Waste Disposal. But on a more practical note, if you're worried, for example, that your city agencies aren't taking environmental standards seriously, see when your auditor last audited them. And if they haven't recently, you should be able to submit a request to your auditor asking them to perform a new audit. The third and final thing that should enable you to trust your city auditor is that typically they're only accountable to the voters. In most situations, they don't answer to any other city officials, meaning that if they're not living up to your expectations, then it's the people's responsibility to audit them right out of a job. Let's do a quick review of what we learned. Auditors are the elected official who holds the rest of the government accountable to the people. They do this by independently investigating other government agencies, holding them accountable to relevant laws and to various standards of efficiency. And most importantly, despite their stellar, star-studded performances, they have no relation to Lady Gaga. And that concludes this episode of Bridgetown Abridged about auditors. If you found this video interesting or you enjoyed it, please like and maybe share it with some of your friends. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can check out the sidebar and subscribe to my channel. Thanks, and once again, have a wonderful day.